They say refereeing is at its best when you don't notice it. You are not supposed to remember the referee's name, or the V booth, or that little pitch side monitor. Well, at the 2026 World Cup, we remember all of them. This was the tournament where the officials' room produced as much drama as the pitch itself, where a single video review could music end a team's dream in the space of 30 seconds, and where millions of people became genuinely convinced the whole thing was rigged. So, we are running through 15 of the most controversial refereeing decisions of the entire tournament. And trust me, it is a roller coaster. Before we start, one thing you need to understand because it explains half of what follows. V is only allowed to review music for things: whether a goal should stand, whether a penalty should be given, whether a card went to the wrong player, and whether a straight red is warranted. That's it. It cannot hand out a yellow card. So, when a referee gets pulled to the monitor to look at a bad tackle, his only options are often to do nothing or to send a man off. There is no middle gear. Keep that flaw in your back pocket, because it is about to cause absolute chaos. Number 1 on our list, and we start at the sharpest end of the tournament. Spain against France in the semifinal. Music. In the first half, Lamine Yamal went down under a challenge from France defender. Music. Lucas Digne and referee Ivan Barton immediately pointed to the spot. Spain scored and never looked back. Music. But replays lit up France fans everywhere because to many eyes, the ball appeared to strike Yamal's own arm first. Music, which would have meant a handball and a free kick the other way, not a penalty. VR did not intervene. The penalty stood, and Spain rode it all the way to the final. Now, the counterargument is real. There was genuine contact on Yamal inside the box, and France were thoroughly outplayed regardless. But a decision that helps send one music team to a World Cup final and the other to the third-place playoff is always going to be picked apart frame by frame. And this one will be argued about for years. Number 2, and here's that 4-scenario flaw I told you to pocket, causing its first disaster, the Breel Embolo red card in Argentina's quarterfinal against Switzerland. Just after Switzerland equalized, referee Joao Pinheiro booked Argentina's Leandro Paredes for a soft foul on Embolo. VR looked again, music, and saw that Embolo had actually thrown himself down before contact. But VR cannot just quietly erase Paredes yellow and move on. So, it used the mistaken identity rule to transfer the card, meaning it now went to Embolo for simulation. And because Embolo already had a booking, that was a red. Switzerland on top, and pushing were suddenly down to 10 men and duly lost 3-1. Swiss coach Murat Yakin branded the rule unacceptable. Here's the maddening part. Embolo genuinely dived, so the call was technically correct. But that same mistaken identity rule had almost never been used this way before, and the fact that its debut just happened to hand the defending champions a numerical advantage in a quarterfinal poured petrol on an already roaring fire. Number 3 keeps us in that same Norway versus England quarterfinal for a decision that opened a strange new door. Torbjørn Hegem thought he had put Norway ahead from a corner rebound in the 55th minute, a scrappy scramble goal that sent the Norwegian end into raptures. But replays showed that as the corner came in, Erling Haaland had shoved Elliot Anderson to the ground with both arms before the ball was even in play under a fresh World Cup clarification. An attacking foul committed before a restart can now be reviewed if it directly leads to the goal that follows, and the officials judge Haaland's push had done exactly that since he had stayed involved in the very passage of play that ended in the net. The goal was cancelled and the music corner ordered to be retaken. It was by the new letter of the law defensible, but it opened up a dizzying new frontier of what V could reach, music back and undo. The unsettling idea that a shove, which happens before the ball is even live, can wipe out a goal seconds later. And it left plenty of people wondering where on earth the line is now drawn and how many perfectly good goals could be picked apart if you went hunting for a nudge in the build-up. Number 4 is the one that stopped being a football story and music became an international incident. The Folarin Balogun red card. In a round of 32 against Bosnia and Herzegovina, the United States striker stepped on defender TK Mihajlovic's ankle in a coming together that looked like nothing at full music, speed, and horrifying in slow motion. Most experts thought a yellow was the ceiling, but the referee got sent to the monitor. And thanks to that four-scenario flaw, his only real choices were to do nothing or to show red. He showed red, and then the tournament left the pitch entirely because Donald Trump, president of one of the host nations, spoke to FIFA President Gianni Infantino about the ban and a supposedly independent FIFA Commission then lifted Balogun's suspension so he could play in the last 16. The message the world received was unmistakable. The rules could be bent if the right powerful man made a phone call. And the inconsistency screamed even louder next to England's Jarrell Quansah sent off against Mexico, who got no such favor and was handed a 2-match ban. Same tournament, 2 red cards, 2 completely different kinds of justice. Step back and marvel at the sheer absurdity of it. A split-second tangle of legs, the kind of tackle usually forgotten by the next morning's highlights, was inflated by VR into a red card, then into a diplomatic saga, then into a global firestorm. Music about whether the World Cup itself was for sale. The system designed to get calls right didn't even get this one right and torched the game's credibility in the process. Number 5 takes us back to where the whole conspiracy was born. Argentina's opening group game against Algeria. In the first half, Lionel Messi went in on Algeria's captain, Issa Mandandi, and Rad Studs hied down the defender's calf. Several pundits called it a stone-cold sending off. The referee produced only a yellow, and VR waved it through. Messi, the tournament's eventual top scorer, stayed on the pitch and went on to complete a hat trick. Algeria were so incensed they lodged a formal complaint with FIFA naming that exact challenge. Whether it was intentional or not, and in fairness it may not have been, the leniency shown to the sport's biggest star in Game 1 became the founding text of every Argentina theory that followed. This is the moment the seed was planted. Number 6 is arguably the most consequential of the lot. Egypt against Argentina in the round of 16. The match that music convinced millions the tournament was scripted. Egypt were magnificent, and most of Aziko thought he had made it 2-0 against the world champions with a slick counterattacking finish. But VR pulled it back, ruling that Marwan Aisha had fouled Lisandro Martinez in the build-up, a foul that had occurred roughly 20 seconds earlier and nearly 100 yards away at the complete opposite end of the pitch. If you can reach that far back to erase a goal, critics asked, has a legal goal ever truly been scored? Egypt did make it 2-0. Music soon after, only for Argentina to storm back with 3 goals in around 13 devastating minutes, capped by an Enzo Fernandez header in stoppage time. Egypt's manager, Hassam Hassan, was volcanic afterward, declaring that they want Messi to stay in the tournament and vowing he would not watch another minute of the World Cup. And the reason this one cut so deep was the glaring double standard. The forensic 20-second 100-yard review that killed Egypt's goal was nowhere to be found when it came to the foul Egypt swore preceded Argentina's winner. One team got the microscope, the other got the benefit of the doubt. This was the decision that lifted the VA Argentina conspiracy from a meme into a genuine global movement. One that 6 million people would later cite when they signed a petition demanding the champions be thrown out altogether. Music, and it is worth pausing here because those Argentina calls get at the deeper sickness of this whole thing. V was sold to us as a machine to increase trust in the game. Instead, at this tournament, it has done the exact opposite. It has made supporters glance nervously at the referee before daring to celebrate a goal. A former FIFA referee, Christina Unkel, working as an analyst this summer, put the mood perfectly, saying, fan confidence is completely eroded right now, and adding she had never seen this level of anger in her career. A trust machine that destroys trust. Remember that as we roll on. Number 7 is heartbreak of the purest kind, Iran. In the dying seconds of their final group game against Egypt, 93 minutes gone, a place in the knockouts hanging in the balance. And Shoja Khalilzade poked home in a chaotic goalmouth scramble to send Iran, who'd punched miles above their weight all tournament and had been written off music before a ball was kicked, into the last 16. He ripped his shirt off in delirium. The bench emptied. An entire nation held its breath. And then VR drew its lines. Those cold, clinical, computer-generated lines. And the graphics showed Khalil Zada had been offside by a toe. A single toe on the very last kick of their World Cup. It was by the letter of the law the correct call. Nobody could seriously dispute the geometry, but it was also a brutal illustration of how this technology can take a moment of pure, delirious human joy and reduce a nation's entire tournament to a matter of millimeters. Music, measured by a machine, correct? And completely soul-crushing all at once. Number 8. Music is the tournament's most poetic tragedy. Portugal led Croatia 2-1 in the last minute of their round of 32 tie when Jasko Gardiel bundled home what music looked like a dramatic scrambled equalizer to force extra time. Absolute beat 'em. Players sprinting to the corner flag, a nation daring to dream of music, one last chapter. And then VR turned not to the broadcast cameras, which showed nothing at all, but to the motion sensor buried inside the match ball, which had detected the faintest graze off the head of Croatia's substitute Igor Matanovic somewhere in the build-up. A touch utterly invisible to the human eye. That microscopic contact was enough to place Mario Pasalic offside, and the goal was wiped away as if it had never happened. The decision extended Cristiano Ronaldo's World Cup farewell, and in the very same breath brought the legendary international career of Luka Modric to an end in defeat. A 24-year journey, one of the greatest midfielders the game has ever seen, finished off by a strand of hair and a computer chip. Technically correct if you trust the technology. Emotionally devastating no matter what you trust. Number 9 is one of the most talked about incidents of the whole tournament. Cablegate. England were second from going into halftime of their quarterfinal, a goal down to Norway, when music Jude Bellingham conjured a brilliant equalizer. But Norway were apoplectic, insisting that goalkeeper Origin Island's clearance had clipped one of the cables suspending an overhead camera, changing its flight before music. It dropped kindly to Elliot Anderson, who set the whole move in motion. Norway midfielder Sanderberg called the situation ridiculous. FIFA fired back with data from the chip inside the ball, claiming there was no peak in music, the sensor's reading, and therefore no contact with the wire. So it came down to your own eyes, which said one thing versus a microchip, which said another, and FIFA asking the entire world to trust the chip. The delicious irony is that this is the same technology sensitive enough to detect a hair. Yet somehow it couldn't tell whether a ball smacked into a steel cable. Norway went out 2-2, music 1, still convinced the camera wire had a hand in their exit. Number 10 brings a gut punch of an elimination. Belgium against Senegal in the round of 32, deep into extra time. The match crawling toward a penalty shootout, with barely a chance between them. Then Yuri Tielemans went down in the box. Referee Saad Martinez initially looked entirely uninterested. Arm out, play on, nothing to see. But a long, drawn-out VR review dragged him over to the monitor, where after several looks, he decided Lamine Chimera had made contact. And I mean the faintest imaginable contact, while clumsily trying to defend a cross. Penalty. Tylon stepped up and buried it, and Belgium completed a stunning comeback from 2 goals down to win 3-2 and dump a very good Senegal side out of the World Cup. So, a team that had clawed level and looked set for the lottery of penalties instead went home on a nudge you could barely see even in slow motion. If you were a Senegal fan, that's the kind of exit that stays with you for years. Number 11 could genuinely have reshaped a group in England's dour, toothless group stage draw with Ghana. Prince Adu looked to be hauled clean down the box by a wild, mistimed Esri Kansa challenge. Exactly the kind of coming together that gets pointed to the spot 9 times out of 10. Referee Saad Martinez, the same official who'd later give that soft Belgian penalty, waved play on without a flicker of doubt, and astonishingly did not intervene at all. It's very hard to view it as anything other than a clear, clean oversight. And this one had real teeth because had Ghana been awarded that penalty and tucked it away, the entire final standings of the group could have looked dramatically different with knock-on effects for who went through and who packed their bags. A reminder that the decisions V quietly doesn't make can be every bit as consequential as the dramatic ones it does. Number 12. And staying with denied penalties, we go to France against Senegal in the group stage. Kylian Mbappe went to ground under a mistimed-looking Sadio main challenge inside the box. And to most eyes, it seemed a clear one. A defender, getting his legs tangled with the fastest man on the pitch. Referee Ali Raza Fagani said no. VR actually suggested he go and take a look, which is rarer than you'd think. But Fagani trotted to the monitor, studied it, music, and stuck stubbornly to his guns, bizarrely concluding that it was Mbappe who had initiated the contact. A verdict very few people on the planet reached watching the same replay. It was one of the very first head-scratchers of the entire tournament, a sign of the confusion music to come. France's comfortable win meant it never blew up into something bigger, but it planted an early seed of doubt about exactly how and on what basis these enormous calls were being reached. Number 13, a whole cluster of English penalty grievances. First, the round of 16 against Drive Congo, where Harry Kane went clean through and hit the deck as goalkeeper Lionel Mapasi slid in and made contact. Referee Adam McAdamy not only waved it away, he practically accused Kane of diving, though tellingly, he didn't book him for it. V checked, V shrugged, and to just about everyone watching, it looked a stonewall penalty. And England's officiating saga didn't end there, because in the quarterfinal against Norway, Jed Spence was initially awarded a spot kick after going down in the box, only for Clement Turpin to march to the monitor and take it straight back off them. Whichever way you sliced it. England spent this tournament on a genuinely bewildering penalty roller coaster. And that constant tug of war, given, not given, checked, overturned, gets at the biggest problem of all, one that has nothing to do with whether any single call was right. It's what V has done to the way we experience the game itself. The whole magic of football is the moment the ball hits the net. A billion people leap out of their seats at the exact same instant. Strangers hug. You can't feel your face. That shared, spontaneous eruption is the entire point of watching. VR quietly murders it. Now the ball hits the net and you freeze. You glance at the referee. You wait for the finger to the earpiece. And only once some official in a booth signs off do you let yourself feel anything. And even then it's muted, delayed, robbed of its spark. There's a growing chorus of people who think the honest answer is simply to scrap it, to accept the odd on-field injustice as a fair price for keeping the soul of the game alive. When a system built to make football fairer leaves this many people wanting it gone, something has gone very wrong. Anyway, back to the list. Number 14 takes us to Brazil against Scotland in the group stage. Scotland's Jack Hendry got caught dallying on the ball, a real defensive howler, and Vinicius Jr. read it in a flash, nipping in behind to steal it off his toes and roll it into an empty net. A lovely, predatory, alert piece of striker's play. Except VAR ruled it out, deciding Vinicius had fouled Hendry in the act of nicking the ball. Even though the actual contact looked slight at best, the sort of shoulder-to-shoulder you see go unpunished 20 times a game. The BBC's own refereeing analyst, Darren Kay, conceded Scotland were a little bit fortunate to get away with it, and Vinicius was left furiously remonstrating with the officials, unable to fathom how a clean bit of anticipation had been turned into a foul against him. In the end, it barely mattered because Brazil rolled to a 3-0 win and topped the group anyway, which is the only reason it doesn't rank higher. But it was an early sign of a theme that would go on to define the whole summer. Goals being a race for contact you'd need a magnifying glass to find. And rounding out the list at number 15, we head to Germany against Paraguay in the round of 32.